Welcome, welcome, everyone. We'll give folks, oh boy. It is amplified, I know. Who were these people last night partying? We were here last night, but we did not amplify it, right?
Maybe you just didn't hear energy.
Yes. Okay. Friends online, can you hear us? Those of you who are, okay, great. So delighted for everyone who can be here in person and online. I know many folks are struggling with illness related to the change of seasons and the pressure of the holidays. So very happy for all of you who are here. I'm very happy for friends online who are recovering and or just being cozy. Folks might still be settling in, but I'm Eve. I am your teacher here tonight at the San Francisco Dharma Collective. This is the Wednesday night Well of Being, and we are working with this beautiful text by Tsoknyi Rinpoche called Open Heart, Open Mind. And we are going to continue this evening talking about subtle body and probably continue until the end of my time on this earth, talking about subtle body. Such an important part of our practice, such an important part of meditation. So I'll do just a tiny bit of review from last week, and then we're going to do a different kind of subtle body practice. So last week we had the beautiful good fortune to have Catherine with us, and she was giving us this subtle body practice through devotional chanting or singing. And it's so interesting to get these other avenues or roots in to that experience of subtle body feeling in balance. So if this is a new term for you, or even if it's a familiar term for you, it's really interesting to reconnect to the basic inner architecture, or sacred architecture of the subtle body. So the subtle body has these channels throughout, and these are called TSA. And the subtle body channels, if you've ever seen an image from, let's say, traditional Chinese medicine or psychedelic art, then there's like all this light channels through the body. So those channels are where then the energy or the life force moves through, and that's called the lung, almost like Loong energy. And it kind of has its home base right here, and then can move throughout the channels, kind of animating us. This is, of course, called prana in the Hindu traditions. And this lung energy, when it's imbalanced, really, animates the experience of our, essentially our emotions and our subtle energies. So this architecture here, we're not talking about the bones, we're not talking about the muscles, we're not talking about vessels. We're talking about this, as so beautifully, I think, translated, subtle body. Sometimes people also call it the emotional body, or in some ways this layer between our emotions, our thoughts, and then the experience of the body. And in addition to the channels and to the energy, there are what are called these little drops of energy. These are called the tigle, like vital life energy drops. When our subtle body is at ease, meaning it's flowing freely and naturally, it's not blocked, it's not kind of tangled up, then we are getting these little droplets of life force energy moving throughout the body with the lung. So whether or not that sounds, like a fantasy or make-believe to you, the parts of the subtle body that I think won't feel that way are, we recognize there are physical feelings in the body. I'm tired, I'm hungry, my shoulder hurts. And then we recognize that there is things in the body like disappointment, loneliness. Anybody ever feel anger in their body? Right? That's not the form body. That's not what's sometimes called the gross body or the coarse body. The subtle body, it's that layer of how we experience, this this whole idea of mind-body connection really implicates the reality that our physical body is implicated by our mind, and the subtle body is kind of the conduit by which that can occur. And every meditation practice is a subtle body practice. So meditation, in some ways by design, helps the subtle body become more balanced. So how does the subtle body get out of balance? Welcome to the modern world. Pretty much everything. Some of the top things can be this, they called often like these knots in the subtle body. This is often when we are having emotions we're trying to not feel. So when we are suppressing, pushing away, that can really kind of, create this knot in the subtle body. And this weekend, the small group, we did a half day of subtle body practices, and I was saying, and some other students here, that when you get those vital energies flowing through the body, there's actually a lot of wakefulness. So even you might not have been aware there was kind of these knotted areas, but when they start to settle and open and things flow, it's like, whoa, it's like you had something better than a cup of coffee, because there's no jitter, there's just like vital awakeness. And has nothing to do with your physical state, right? It's actually this beautiful aspect of recognizing that the body awareness, it's more than just the simple biological functionings. And even simple biological functionings are incredible, miraculous, amazing. But when we really start to get curious about consciousness, so much more becomes interesting about these other architectures, sacred architectures of the body. The subtle body, I think last week in one of the participants, I think it was Ulysses, was saying how it wasn't only that the body started, he could have that sense of ease and gentleness and kind of vitality, but he lost the edges, the perimeters of the body. Right? That often happens, and we can even feel like our body is bigger, which is sometimes described as the awareness body. So it's very beautiful, and it's interesting. We had this conversation a bit last week. There is such an emphasis in our culture on being embodied, but often that means going to the gym, and that is one way to get embodied, but that's the physical form body. With the subtle body, like to get a six-pack and like ripped biceps in your subtle body, you have to be imbalanced with your emotions. However, to have a six-pack and be ripped in the form body, you could completely never deal with your emotions, right? And in fact, maybe even use that form of embodiment to avoid that connection with these emotions. And tonight, we'll be looking a bit more about the relationship not only of kind of discrete emotions in the body, meaning one instance of feeling irritated or anxious or lonely, but actually the patterns that can exist in the subtle body through different experiences of emotion. So the patterns, that we can feel in the subtle body, and actually Andre, I'm so glad you're here. This relates to your question yesterday. Like sometimes we feel like the emotions, they're so close to us that it's almost like we think they are who we are, or that they're always around. And that's actually when we're kind of feeling how these patterns live in the subtle body. So our practice tonight that we'll get started with is the Dzogchen version of mindfulness of feelings. So many of you are familiar with mindfulness of feelings from a Theravadan approach, in which you are noticing sensation and then applying a label: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. I often guide that here. I think it's very effective as a way to start recognizing the feeling and then recognizing how we judge or put a attribution on the feeling. But tonight we're going to keep it a bit more simple with this Dzogchen approach of what is sometimes called either bare awareness or pure experiencing, or just kind of this pure contact. So if for a moment, before we even practice, if I ask you, think of someone who you love and who you're worried about their well-being. Does everyone have someone? At least one? And usually, right, that's not just a thought. There will be the sensation, the imprint in the body. Can folks feel like a little imprint, some sort of sensation in the body? Where do you feel it? You just call out chest, throat, chest and throat, bottom of your stomach. Yeah. And so when we do this practice, we're not going to kind of do those kind of implanted ideas of the person who we love, who we worry about, though they might come up, because they often come up in our practice, right? We're going to sit noticing the body, and then when a kind of sensation, a feeling arises in the body, we're just going to meet it. We're just going to contact it. Welcome, welcome. So we're not trying to change it. We're not even applying compassion to it. We are just purely, basically, simply noticing it. Now this can be tricky because then we're like, okay, do I stay there? Do I move somewhere else? And with the mindfulness of feelings, just like it would be of breath, it could be an experience where there's kind of a sensation arising from the belly. We've met it, we've contacted it with our attention. And then we notice there's a sensation arising, around the heart area. We meet it. And then there's one arising in like the corner of the cheekbone. Or it's possible we might just feel a sense of subtle energy in the body. And then something arises. Possibly there'll be a thought associated, there will be thoughts. Possibly there'll be a thought and then we recognize oh, that person came to mind, and immediately there's a sensation in the body. But sometimes there's just these layers and levels of feeling in the body that we don't even quite know the story. We don't know why. We don't know where. And in this practice, we're not doing inquiry. We're not trying to understand why or where it comes from. We're just meeting it. And again, as Tsoknyi described with mindfulness of form, or mindfulness of body, we are caressing this experience with our attention. So we caress the body with our attention as we're doing the scan of the body. And when a sensation arises in the body with mindfulness of feeling, we're just meeting it. Now, of course, some sensations could arise that are not subtle body, like an itch or an ache. Of course, you can also meet that in its simple form. So not thinking about it, not story about it, not pushing it away, not pulling it closer. So really this simple meeting, and often Tsoknyi Rinpoche calls this the handshake practice, right? So just meeting and shaking hands with the experience and then letting it unfold all on its own. So that's going to be our first practice. And again, maybe a bit of a difference from the practice where you're just noticing feelings in the body. In this case, we're really opening the aperture to notice the feelings in the subtle body. So these emotional residues or these lingering feelings that might be arising. How's that sound? Anybody have any feelings around? Something to practice with? Okay, yeah. Yeah, the heartbreak of this world, kind of local, global, is it's in our bodies. It's not just that we think about it. You think you read a newspaper story or hear something from a friend and it's just in your mind? Of course not. It's here. And in some way, this practice in allowing ourselves to gently open and be with, it's a beautiful way to help that energy move through the body, right? We're not going to express it outward, but we're also not pushing it away. So we're kind of giving it its own natural course to arise and fall. Okay. So let's find a balanced physical body posture. So feeling the uprightness of the spine. Finding a sense of gentleness. Finding your furry animal friend to sit next to you if you're lucky. So finding the uprightness of the spine by gently tucking the chin. So you feel that length through the back of the body. And then softening the eyes. Softening the chest. Softening the belly. And to settle in, let's focus in a bit on the breath. So as we breathe in, we invite a quality of vividness. And as we exhale, we invite a quality of ease and relaxation. And continuing with our inhales, feeling that sense of vividness and brightness. And then with our exhales, relaxing, releasing. And of course, the mind will be doing its thing, wandering to fantasy or memory or image, no problem. Just a bit longer here, finding our ground and stabilizing through each breath. Inhaling and finding that vividness, that uprightness. And exhaling, releasing, relaxing. And we can always come back to this breath, especially if we start to feel a bit spaced out, maybe dull, focusing on that inhale. And if there's too many thoughts, excitation or agitation, we can invite that exhale, relaxing, softening. Let's give ourselves a moment to really just feel ourselves in this place, in this space, in this moment in time. this Wednesday evening, right before this last new moon of the year, this solstice, the time of so many holiday traditions. Here in the Bay Area, refreshing rain that has just given our skies a clearing. This beautiful dark night sky, a collection of beings here as Sangha tonight. And inviting this spark of inspiration for our practice called bodhicitta. This spark of inspiration that our practice is not just for us here in this moment, but that this practice could be a benefit, that this practice can create the meaningful energy and forces to help alleviate suffering of beings near and far. And try not to get too conceptual on that. Just, is there the presence of compassion here in the heart? And then with that guiding light, that spark, that sense of compassion, we simply bring our attention and awareness now more fully to the body. And this mindful attention, this bright, curious, yet gentle and soft. So bright but not tight. Without any need to elaborate, no concepts needed, just meeting in the most simple way the sensations in our body as they arise. Possibly meeting in a more slow way these subtle sensations of emotion in the body. So this mindfulness of feelings in the body. A simple presence and accompaniment, bare attention, pure awareness. Of course, thoughts, memories, images will arise. No problem. But simply return and refresh our interest. And maybe even notice, did this thought that carried us away, did it leave an imprint on the body? No need to tell a story of, I'm worried about the flight I have to take Saturday. But simply meeting with that simple, bare awareness and attention, tightness around the neck or contraction behind the heart. Gentle, clear, precise noticing. Each time you notice you've been carried away, a beautiful opportunity to refresh and return. Maybe notice, do you need a little bit of that breath that feels brightening? A couple focuses on the inhale. Do you need a little ease? Focus on the exhale. And then coming back to this mindfulness of feelings, which could possibly give us an opportunity to sink ever more deeper into the layers of sensation in the body. No agenda, no expectation. It's this simple meeting. Maybe you start to notice that these sensations are shifting and changing. Maybe even the ones that feel a bit stickier can naturally unwind without needing to understand them, not even needing to embrace them, just allowing this natural rising and falling, this natural clearing of energies and sensations in the body by simply making space and opening to what is here. If anything arises that feels too strong or uncomfortable, you can simply allow the focus to return to the breath, maybe even opening the eyes. Otherwise, keep opening, keep being present with attention and awareness in this very simple way. Almost as though your awareness and attention signal to the body, you have all the time you need. You have all the space you need. Keep coming back. Keep refreshing your interest. And it's wonderful for the practice to give us a sense of ease and relaxation, but we really want to maintain that vividness, that wakefulness quality. Almost a loving readiness for whatever arises. Just a couple more moments here. And consider the possibility that your attention and awareness could naturally want to be just right here. Present with the unfolding experience of this body. When the bell rings, can you maintain some sense of presence with the body? Even as you are listening or perhaps speaking, maintain some aspect of presence right here. It's mindful awareness of the body. Thank you for your practice. So, here at the Dharma Collective, we're pretty fortunate in that we get to sit in community together. And it's also an incredible opportunity every week to practice Sangha. And Sangha being that kind of collection of folks who come together to practice and to support one another. And since we don't all know each other yet, and every week there's kind of this wonderful variation of who shows up. Every time we gather on a Wednesday, we kind of reinstantiate this commitment to connecting with one another as part of the practice. And so in a simple terms, that means as we are listening, we're listening with compassion. And as we're speaking with compassion, so that we can actually engage with one another in a way that feels supportive and inspiring. And I mentioned this last week, and I'll mention it again. There are some folks in this room who I've seen many times, but never heard from, or don't often hear from. So I really encourage you, if it feels like a special night to do so, would love to hear from you. And then whoever would like to share, to really kind of keeping in mind that compassion for other beings and in how we're sharing even, right? In the quality of what we share and the content of what we share. And then for all of us, this compassionate listening and this compassionate presence. We could even turn that towards kind of latent self-criticism, like, God, I really blew it in that practice. Hope no one heard me snoring. Like, cut it out. It's so nice to have restful sleep, no problem, right? So just that way of like really finding gentleness, not only in the formal practice or, the teachings, but also in how we are with each other. How does that sound? Yeah, you guys came to the right place for this, so great. So I would love to hear oh yeah, you have it, Kate, great. For folks in the room, we use the microphone so friends online can hear. And for friends online, it looks like my vision is getting worse, so I'm having a hard time with hands. I even think I see one now. Oh, fantastic. So for folks in the room, we'll use the mic, and for friends at home. Hi, Jason. Long time no see. Oh, I still can't really see you. Never mind. Is a hand still up? Wait, who's in that
Yeah,
top left corner?
hi Jason. I'm sending you the unmute request. Are you getting it?
That's not Jason Reiner, though. It's a different Jason.
Ah, okay.
He's frozen. Okay.
Okay.
When you unfreeze, we are here. Any other folks here in the room? Any?
Eve, I'm so sorry. Could somebody unmute Eve, please? Thank you so much.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I know some of you have done this practice before, maybe many times. Sometimes it just feels fresh and new. So any questions or reflections on the practice? Yes, please. And your name, please.
My name's Olivia. That was really tough for me, actually. And I usually don't feel like that when I meditate, but yeah, I had a tough day at work. I work with like people in crisis, and I felt unsafe with the client. And so when I was like tuning into the subtle body, I felt like really heavy, like almost like I was in one of those like amusement park, like gravity,
Yeah.
like intense gravity feeling where you're like
Yes.
pulled back. Yeah, and then I was just like kind of fighting like images coming up, whether it be from like the news or just like my own like fears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really uncomfortable. It was
Yeah.
like felt like I was being like dragged down.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. And how did you meet it? Or like what came up for you in terms of, okay, unpleasant, difficult to be with? How did you, yeah.
I wasn't really sure. I was just trying to like elongate my breaths.
Okay.
Like, yeah, take longer inhales and exhales.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really sure
Yeah.
how to meet it.
Did you hear that cue when I said if anything's hard, open the eyes,
Yeah, I did
focus on the
that.
breath? Did that help at all?
It did, yeah, because I
Okay.
felt very out of body.
Yep.
It was like a weird
Yep.
feeling. But when
Yeah.
I opened my eyes, it felt better.
Yeah, great. And as you may know, from sounds like the work you do, this is not an unusual feeling to have, right? Especially when we've had a high intensity emotional event, for there to be this kind of, you know, I don't want to use the T word, but like vicarious trauma or, you know, just heightened emotional experience. And it can be very hard to kind of settle in, whether it's like a breakup or something very scary, you know, in terms of physical safety, to come to the body. And it's interesting what you described, almost that like kind of vertigo-like feeling. So likely often when we feel unsafe, in the moment, we're so focused on becoming safe that we kind of push down everything. And so in some ways you're opening to it, right? And then it's right there with you. And uncomfortable for sure. I don't think it's per se harmful. However, the images you describe, kind of pervasive, you know, insistent images, I would say that, you know, if you are continuing to meditate for the next couple days, it would be really good to start to keep the eyes open and really focus on like compassion practices, and not, you know, not even doesn't need to be specific, like towards you or towards anyone else, just like caring for the body, you know, or caring more generally. Sometimes directly turning towards the body in the acuity can be, as you experienced, hard to be with. Luckily, you know, it's interesting because it's not creating something that isn't there, but it's making space for something that's there that's hard. So sometimes even that framing can be good, and then titrating, like maybe I'm going to journal instead of meditate today, or maybe I'm going to practice lying down with my eyes open, or just changing it up. Yeah. And also, I'm sorry for that experience. Yeah. It sounds like important work and hard work. And I think I've shared this, when I worked in the ER at General, there'd be, of course, scary incidents and sometimes, you know, that unwanted imagery. And as many clinicians in the room know, that can happen for a couple weeks and it can be normal and not easy. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Do we have a real Jason? Okay, we'll try.
Let's try it.
Aha,
Oh, yep, he's unmuted.
Jason, unmuted.
okay.
Yes. Hi, Eve. It's
Hi.
been a while. I haven't been to the Sangha in a long time. So
Yeah, nice to hear you. I don't see you, but it's nice
yeah,
to
I'm
hear
not
you.
gonna. I'm having connectivity issues. I actually got bumped, so I'm just gonna keep it.
No
to
problem.
voice. But I wanted to say that this really was very meaningful for me, because not only do I really love Tsoknyi Rinpoche's book, and it's one of my Bibles. It's kind of the one. I read it all the time, and I don't have a copy because I keep giving it away to people. It's that kind of book. But I really was moved by the thinking about someone I love and using that as um, an anchor. You know, I would think of it as just
Yeah.
in practice. But what happened, I was really kind of moved by that, and I started to breathe, and I was thinking about all the different emotions that I'm feeling. And at first I was breathing in kind of compassion. I was kind of taking compassion from however it is, breathing it in and then breathing out kind of all the worry and anger. And there's all this emotion going on. And then I switched because I realized that, like, in order to really care for the person, I wanted to breathe in their pain.
Yeah.
And breathe out my compassion. And it completely changed everything. So it turned into Tonglen. And
Yeah.
and that felt really good. It was like it just felt more natural to do that. And I think that that's something that I just wanted to share, like in terms of wanting to take on the worry, and the person I love is having a lot of health issues and all kinds of stuff. And I was thinking about just taking it on. Like I can take that on in a Tonglen sense and breathe out this compassion. And it just totally clarified my emotions. It was really pretty profound. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jason. I love it when natural wisdom emerges, and that's really, especially since you have a relationship with that practice, it makes sense it might naturally come, right? Because sometimes when we meet these experiences in the body, there's just that natural upwelling of care, right? Even without I'm doing a compassion practice, like we are always doing a compassion practice for paying attention close enough to the experience. And so, yeah, and I love that you kind of did it the other way, and then we're like, wait. And yeah, sorry to hear about this beloved with the health concerns. And, it is so hard. Like we want to accompany this person or be there with them. And sometimes we can't do so to the extent we'd like, actually often, right? It's very hard. And so this is also very meaningful practice to do, what you're describing, when we want to be able to show up in the best way possible without kind of overwhelming someone, like, are you okay? What can I do? I'm here, I'm right here. And just sitting in our own seat of, I practice, like my care is so deep, my compassion is so deep, and just being there. Right? That quality of presence could be so much more beneficial too. Thanks, Jason. Nice to have you. Other questions? Reflections? Yeah, Nick.
So that was also very difficult in a lot of ways. I was trying to think about an anchor on somebody who I felt like was going through a tough time. And, 'tis the season to have a lot of good times, a lot of parties, good food, all the good things. Also is the season where people go through a lot of sort of mental hardships.
Yeah.
And, suicidal tendencies go up.
Yeah.
And so I think, encountering somebody who recently I sort of was detecting was like, oh, this person is actually in quite a bad spot.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that, I mean, in terms of where that was sort of, materializing in my body, it was like right in the solar plexus. It was very, it was tense. It was like very tense. It was a lot. And so, and then I sort of, trying to sort of stay with that and focus on it, felt like more like empathetic distress. It felt like more like a tension that was going down rather than a compassion to sort of, allow things to sort of start to flow. And then, the brain started drifted to, why are we having these emotions? And part of it might be, well, there's angst that is a desire to sort of move and help and intervene because something needs to be done, sort of a constructive drive. And then I started thinking about somebody else who, had committed suicide. And, a lot of ways it feels like, and I don't know how constructive this is to think about this, but that, really, we failed that person. We didn't get there in time, and to not let that happen again. And so, trying to sort of navigate that and guide that, and then sort of steer it maybe towards, some of the aspects of that we've done here before, where you are you're thinking, breathe in to sort of take in, the suffering and sort of the angst and whatnot, and then exhale to kind of breathe out some warmth and compassion, strength. That seemed to help a little bit, but but it was very it was fairly intense. So but
And so
welcomed.
yeah, and I love the description of it, right? Because again, you're kind of meeting yourself there. And what I notice is there's why do I have this emotion? Which is, I think, a very interesting, it's an inquiry question right in the middle. And then this emotion has a function, it has a purpose, it has a history, right? This has happened before, right? So that's in some ways like a very like clear seeing and then like wisdom practice. And it's interesting though, because there's like, yes, but with anxiety, so much of it is, prospective, and sitting here in our seat, especially meditating in this moment, there's nothing more to do. So actually we get to catch on to not just this single trigger with this single person, but some of our habitual ways of being with the unbelievable vastness of uncontrollability, you know? And so it is uncomfortable, but it's great actually in this weird way to be like, oh, wow, I understand why this is here. Like there's a wholesome aspect of it and the density of that. So it's a beautiful segue to that, you know, the patterns in the subtle body. And I can just feel like us. Like this is just what it feels like. I'm curious, is that like a feeling you've noticed before or comes up, that kind of tightness in the solar
Yeah,
plexus?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, again, that doesn't mean like your emotion isn't real and it doesn't matter, but we get to start to feel the way we get nodded. And that the nodding is so familiar, we think it's just natural.
Right, right. The other thing I was trying to sort of thread the needle on was, is it a desire to fix, right, which can also not be necessarily constructive, and so is it that this, somebody may be in not a good place and you want to fix them? Like, and what is the difference between wanting to help and sort of having a positive, constructive intervention versus a not very helpful, I'm feeling what they're feeling and I want to fix it,
Yeah.
which is, of course, not maybe as helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, you beautifully already made the distinction between that empathetic distress of, oh my God, this is too much for me, and the compassion, which is, I really care and I want to help. And then that other, like, classic codependent deflection of like, I really care, I want you to be okay, but actually I need you to be okay so I can be okay. When it's really someone who's at risk, like who cares? Like we just need to help them. I think that's a great question and a good one to hold for all of us, either like curious or in recovery codependence or, going back and forth of like when and what is the quality of compassion that has a flavor of, needing kind of in return. But I really think, especially if it's someone you're concerned about, getting to them, surrounding them with love, like it sounds like getting a plan with other friends and showing up, like, yeah. And I also love that you mentioned, I can't remember if I said this last night or last week, but I wrote this essay a couple of years back based on a talk I used to give for Vinny around the holidays every year on the holiday schmear, which is like the combination of shame and fear that many of us have around the holidays, because it's not just like, 'tis the season, as you're alluding to, right? It's like the season to feel inadequate and to either be like, why isn't my family more functional? Or they used to be like, there's so much comparison that can get brought up at this time of year of how we should be. And you like look in this window and they're like, look at that tree and they're probably happy. And like this whole thing, and it's like, the reason we have so many holidays celebrating light right now is because there's a natural darkness of this time, and it's beautiful. And I love, Earthlyn Manuel and Deborah Eden Toll and these books recently on like the richness of darkness. As a spiritual practitioner, like this is a great time of year. Like it's a real invitation inward. So, yeah, thanks. Hi.
Hello, hi. Yeah, thank you for your teachings. I just had a quick question. I had a very difficult experience recently, and something I've never encountered before in my life, and it made me feel very unsafe and really mistrustful of others, and it was a terrible thing to happen, kind of going into the holidays because you want to feel light and joyous and Christmassy. And I think it's resolved now. I don't want to say too much about it, but it kind of involved a potential lawsuit. But anyway, I think I managed to resolve it, but it left a really big imprint in my body.
Yes.
And I felt so unsafe. It was almost like post-traumatic stress disorder. It triggered. It was horrible.
Yeah.
it really just happens. So I'm finding it really hard to be in my body, like similar to what you were saying to the other person about trauma.
Yeah.
Like not wanting to be in the body and wanting to escape, like just either wanting to space out or, you know, smoke
Distract.
pot
Yeah,
or do
sure.
anything to like escape. Or I even wanted, it triggered like, the flight response, right?
Yeah.
The fight or flight. Because I had to get away and I almost wanted to leave San Francisco and get on a plane because I felt so unsafe.
Yeah.
It was awful. Like I never had anything like that happen. Anyway, I just don't know how to like process it through it. Like if I should be with the difficult emotions, if I should continue to escape.
Yeah.
And run away. But how do you meditate when you've had an extreme event?
Yeah. I'm sorry for so much just difficulty, you know.
Happens.
And you know, I think step one is recognizing like it's hard, right? And so I'm glad you're here with us to say it. And I'm curious, it's hard to give you advice without knowing a lot more about your practice and other supports. Have you been meditating for a while?
I've been a follower of the Dharma for a long time.
Great. Yeah.
But I always have trouble sitting still. I'm quite a busy person.
Okay.
Like physically and mentally. So
Yeah.
I've always struggled with like sitting still. And I think I've always found it difficult to be with myself. I've got better at it over the years.
Yeah.
And I was beginning to get back into meditation. So I do sort of online meditation groups.
Yeah.
But I do need to strengthen my practice. But right now it came just as I was making a new commitment, this thing happened.
Yeah.
And I just need to kind of know how to process it and move through the difficult
Yeah.
emotions when I don't even want to be here. I mean, not that I'm like in any way going to end my life, or that's not going to happen, but I just, you know, like be here as in be in a situation or be present. Like, like what you were saying about it leaving an imprint in the body.
Yeah.
It really can.
For sure.
And that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And I think, you know, I guess a couple things. I think it is good to sit with other people, you know, and even if you're not doing the practice we're doing and you have the eyes open and even just like hands on the belly, you know, so you're not forcing yourself to be in the body, but you're physically with yourself, you know, like just that holding. And then, you know, if compassion has been part of your practice, it doesn't even have to be that direct, just a sense of compassion like we started with bodhicitta, just stay there. And then I would also really suggest for the next couple of weeks considering journaling instead of meditating, because it really has a lot of benefits that are similar. It gives insight, it gives self-reflection, but you're stabilizing. And we are meaning-making creatures, you know, so making the meaning of the situation through writing will also help regulate the experience of the emotions. So very well evidenced, right? Journaling is an incredible practice for dealing with difficulty. So even just like, I'm gonna write for 10 minutes, who knows? You don't even need a prompt, just write. And then with the body, you know, a lot of people, like I'd say all of us, it's like stillness is not like our number one skill, right? And so to think of it as something we cultivate and find like what supports it. So for a lot of folks, myself included, my meditations after I walk, way better. And I'm not talking like cool, like, you know, thriller walk, Vipassana style, like really like walk up a hill, like get a lot of energy out. Then I sit maybe just at the top of the hill. And for right now, again, since probably letting in more is going to be a little helpful for you, like let's say you do walk to the top of the hill, then just open eyes, like let it all in. No focus, no direct, because these focused attention practices, whether on the breath or on the body, can tighten us. So that openness quality. So sometimes called sky gazing, used to be considered, or still considered probably high level practice, but for many of us, it's actually easier to access this open, spacious awareness than these focused, especially when we have acute emotional content. And then, you know, I'm always a big fan of therapy. It's a great complement to practice. You know, it really helps us with the material, and especially in this city, there's all these Buddhist therapists. it's like perfect, you know? So that, I mean, obviously, but like that's so helpful as a support because we do need, especially when we're going through these big thresholds or transitions, we need a teacher who's actually more directly knows us. Like right now, like I don't know you well enough to give you this and I won't be able to track. Like if you come on Wednesdays, of course, happy to keep chatting. But I think in these days, most people, unless they're in an ongoing group, they're not, it's harder to get that kind of one-on-one attunement. So sometimes therapy or coaching can help fill that so that the practice can really help us, we navigate ourselves well through it. And I just love that you're bringing it to practice. I was sharing with my dear friend Erica at dinner, I was like, man, I would never be up here doing this if it wasn't for all the beautiful pain that I've experienced in my life. And not like everything happens for a reason, because that's not true, but we can make meaning out of these experiences. And so to bring it to the path really can very much shift it in that sense of this is like the alchemical fuel of compassion that's waiting to happen without rushing it. You get to be in the, difficulty of it and meeting yourself in it. And then with that knowing that, it is these difficult experiences that create the raw material for our practice to thrive.
Definitely, that was super helpful and really profound. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you say your name?
Dawa,
So nice to connect with you.
nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm going to the UK for a month, but
Okay.
then I'll be back.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We'll be here. Wonderful. Is there one other hand online? Yeah, hi, Victor. Long time. And then Mackenzie.
Hi. um, I just want to share with the person who just spoke that can you hear me well? Because I know
We
sometimes
can hear
my
you
head.
well.
Okay, perfect. I had a similar experience to the person who just spoke. My situation didn't involve.
Oh, sorry, Victor, I am going to cut you off there because I don't want us to talk to somebody else's experience in the room. I think part of like holding a safe container is just kind of like we can share our experience, but when we compare to others, it can get a little strange. It might not land the way we intend.
I was about to share my experience, but it's you decide.
Yeah, so, maybe in a limited way, just so it doesn't feel like a comparison, that would be great. If it still feels good to you, if not, yeah.
And let me know if I'm extending. But anyhow, it was just to basically say I went through a similar experience. It was very traumatic. I believe I didn't deserve to be in that situation. But the way I dealt with it was by many things. I allowed time to heal myself. And so sometimes even though we are going through a similar experience that is very fresh and raw and painful, and you have mixed emotions, sometimes, or what I did, I just allowed time to heal me. But I also
Yeah.
did things that you suggested, such as journaling
Yeah.
or talking to people who I trusted,
Yeah.
who I felt comfortable being vulnerable, to
Yeah.
basically let the emotions and just heal, because otherwise you're holding so much weight onto you if you just keep it to yourself. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you. And so glad you found that support. Yeah.
And it was
Mackenzie.
also at a meditation
Yes.
group.
Yeah. Good.
Hello. My question is kind of at the intersection of physical body and subtle body. I've been dealing with this postnasal drip thing for a while, and I have been trying to figure out if it's actually a physical manifestation of an emotional thing. And during this practice today, it became pretty clear that that's what's going on. I'm still kind of not sure, but I guess I just wanted to ask you a bit about, or what you would say about that, about like this sort of, I don't know, we were talking about the subtle body and
Yeah.
like you get like like almost like an energetic sense of like, oh, there's something here, there's something here. But like, this is like actually a physical thing happening.
Yeah.
I think. I
Yeah.
don't know, it could be in my head, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you know about that?
I mean, it's interesting. We were actually just talking earlier, Erica and I, about this whole field of health psychology, right? And there's no question that stress contributes to everything from immunological functioning to cognitive functioning, right? And stress as a broad umbrella term for an overwhelming emotion. And so, and I would really, really trust your intuition, because our first person introspection is like the most refined tool for diagnosis of mental and physical health, right? And like we've kind of like ignored it for our modern scientific conventions, and they're awesome if you're in an accident or something big. But a lot of we're the experts, and our great grandparents and everyone before, that's what they used, right? Was that knowing. And then the question that might arise is, well, what do I do about it? And I think because, again, stress or inflammation, like there's so much research on, how these systems in the physical body are impacted by emotions, thoughts, or what we're calling subtle body. And so how do we get the subtle body to flow is like the next beautiful inquiry question. Like, what's blocked, right? What needs to be opened? Is there like sadness that wants to be experienced? Is there anger that wants to be held? Like, what is it that might be blocked? Because it's kind of, that's very blunt, but generally, right? And yeah. And like, do you have a hit? Do you have a sense?
Oh, well, just something that you said during the practice really did help. And that was, I think you said something about making space for things. And it was sort of just like, almost like I just kind of imagined my airway being more like dilated. And it was just, it helped. Like just to be like, there's space for whatever this is.
Yes.
The physical aspect and the emotional aspect.
Yep.
I'm still not sure what it is, but.
And even if you never know, no problem. Like the curiosity and the willingness to be like, I have space and there's enough time for this. That's like our whole body's like, oh, okay. Maybe I don't need to fight, flight, freeze out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I just love the kind of subtlety of what you're describing, right? Is one end of the spectrum to some of the more distressing experiences also described in this room in the body. So sometimes the body's like there's a lot, and then sometimes it's like, this is here too. And like the full spectrum can benefit from our that caressing, that like loving attention with. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing as it unfolds. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have 10 minutes. Should we do the book thing? You guys are the great source of wisdom, truly. I do want to read just a couple passages. So we are on chapter 8, 145 pages. Compared to other books, we are just like cruising. Compared to Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, we made like 2 pages a week. This is great. So there's I just love the way he talks about it. I was mentioning this earlier and came up in our dedicated practitioner group last night. We were talking about this emotion of shame, right? And shame is an emotion, right, in which it arises. It's triggered by something, maybe our outburst of anger, maybe a look of contempt that someone gave us. With the experience of shame, it arises, it goes away. However, so many of us have experienced so many triggers to shame throughout our life, given to us by society, given to us by parents, given to us by life experiences, that it almost feels as though shame is just in us. It's not an emotion, it's just part of us. And I think this is a beautiful way of helping understand that what Tsoknyi calls like, how do we unglue these emotions that start to feel like us, like patterns in the body. So he says, in many cases, our sense of who and what we are is trapped by patterns established in our subtle bodies. we experience such patterns more often than not as troubling emotions. The essential condition, the glue that makes this trap especially sticky, is the habit of assuming the solid I as an absolutely rather than relatively real. So this idea that, these experiences in the subtle body, they're actually patterned by a sense that what we're feeling in the body is a reflection of who we are. I read this beautiful poem by Jane Hirschberg. I don't know if any of you know her. She's a Zen poet. And Hirschfield, thank you. And she has a poem called This Burlap Sack. And she says this, I'm handing you this burlap sack, and what you receive actually is the weight of it, which is sand and water. But that's actually not the sack, that's the sand and the water. And goes on to kind of talk about the heart and the troubles of the heart, right? So this body is not actually, and the feelings of it are not who we are. We get this wonderful burlap sack of a body and we fill it with all these emotions and all these other experiences. But this kind of simple experience of identifying with just body and not the emotions that arise within it gives us much less of a solid sense of who we are. And again, so many times in this book, the invitation is to kind of look closely at this sense of I. Look closely at what creates this solid sense of I. And often it's this kind of defending against the world. This desire to be, what he calls it, the social I, the important I, these I's that we construct an identity in the world that then will receive us well. And it's not just an idea, like I am I am a good friend. I am a good writer. I am like whatever these I's are. Some of them are, elevating us. Some of them are denigrating us, like I'm a terrible speller, right? Bad at folding my laundry, and whatever. Any of these, really revealing here, guys. And then, it's like, how do we start to identify with that, view ourselves, we get so stuck in it. And I love this way that he's then saying the sense of I, it's not just this concept of who we are, it actually starts to pattern us in the body. So of course, Bessel van der Kolk then creates this very famous book by really using a psychological framework to describe this, that the body keeps the score, right? That these cumulative life experiences, these identities that we have, often he's associating it with people experiencing profound trauma, starts to live in the body. And even if you're not acknowledging or working with the trauma, the body is aware of it. And so he's talking about this opportunity we have to unglue. He says, what I've learned through the teachings on the subtle body is a way of establishing a dialogue and bringing a bit of light into that identification, that we could talk to the places in the subtle body where patterns live, so to speak, to realize they are not me or not the total me. They are deposits or residue of memory that need to be acknowledged, felt, caressed, and released into a greater flow of open-hearted caring. And so Tsoknyi really says, when you have these, experiences in the body that are hard to be with, turn towards directly with this loving attention. And his suggestion is say, honey, we have to talk. Which is so sweet. And I love it. It's so disarming, So it's whatever it is that arises, honey, no, we've got to talk, And then one of his favorite phrases, which I find to be so helpful, this feels real, but it might not be true. So this feeling, this tightness in my solar plexus, right? This feels real, like there is something wrong. Is it true right now? Okay, actually I'm sitting here in the Dharma Collective with my Sangha. I'm okay. Until we talk directly to the imprint in the body and help actually de-solidify through through the subtle body, our sense of I. So it's like we're working both ways. We're like loosening the sense of I by these compassion practices, by this clear seeing, by, understanding how everything is moving and changing. But we're also like desolidifying by softening these knots in the subtle body. Softening through the patterning of the body. That is something I don't have scientific evidence to back up, but first person introspection, like check it out. The original science of the mind, right? So pay attention when this knot arises. You speak kindly to it. And then what emerges from there? Like what are the possibilities? And sometimes, I've heard many people from different wisdom traditions where you turn towards these difficulties in the body and they speak to you. I have no idea. I think that's awesome. I'm not sure if I've had that myself, but I might need a finer tuned tuning on my radio dial to bring that in. I really believe that there's so much wisdom held in the body. It doesn't surprise me that certain people with training can do that. And then he says, try practicing this the next time you feel a strong emotion. Tell yourself that whatever you're experiencing is not the totality of you, that what you're feeling is only one piece of your experience. In a kind and reassuring way, not blaming the feeling or the pattern behind it, but rather offering a place in your attention in which to come to rest. So he says you can think about it as like talking to your saw and working with your lung, just this direct dialogue with your subtle body. And then just one or two more things here. When we begin to practice mindfulness of feeling, gently engaging with our subtle bodies, we'll find it easier to accomplish much more than we could have believed possible. The key point in working with the subtle body lies in noticing our feelings and learning to welcome them, accept them, and relate with them, rather than allowing them to take over or trying to control them or push away. In the simplest of terms, we learn through working with the subtle body that whatever emotions we experience are not the totality of our being. The ultimate goal of the Dharma is to assist us in seeing what's true. And the truth is that though we act out our daily lives in a realm of relative reality that emerges, abides for a while, and dissolves as various causes and conditions temporarily to come together, in absolute terms, reality is unimaginably free and unimaginably open. So this, quite a mouthful there, but this idea that this practice of mindfulness of feeling is kind of gently turning towards what's here, no agenda, no expectation, right? Just meeting it in that friendly way. It can help us, loosen that solid sense of I. And that can help us with this, I love that he described, this ultimate purpose of the Dharma, to see reality as it truly is. And that, for some people, you're like, wait, that's the purpose? Is that awakening? That doesn't sound like nirvana. But like to see reality as it is means free from delusion and free from craving. Can you imagine even 10 minutes free from delusion and craving? Like, oh, my knee hurts, I wanted to go that way. Oh, what's the sweet thing I get when I leave here tonight, right? Like all these ways we're just like here and we're there and we're here. And we're missing that like essence, love that's always already here. And so when the Dharma allows us to see reality as it is, as craving, aversion, and then we get to be here. Like that is freedom, that is what we're looking for. So it's just this beautiful, and then, this other fancy part he describes that we are living in this kind of illusory reality, this dreamlike reality, meaning the way that we are living our lives is so full of projection. We are basing what we see on past experiences, so we don't see reality as it is. But at this absolute level, meaning if we could see reality as it is, everything is unimaginably free. Everything is already unimaginably open. And that's like, I love this essence of Dzogchen, this teaching that like we are already living in the Pure Land. We just need to kind of polish our lenses so we can see that to be true, right? Like how I look out on all of you and I see you already as Buddhas, right? Can we see each other already as Buddhas, just like a little bit of work to do? Right? Maybe a couple lifetimes, but we're on our way. Okay, we'll get there. So with that, let's dedicate the merit of our practice here. So maybe that subtle invitation, that dialogue of turning towards whatever is here in the body that maybe feels achy or hard, and starting that conversation of, I'm here with you, I love you. And then taking a moment to just feel the collective field here. This opportunity to practice together and either symbolically or energetically offer our time here together. So we imagine that this collected energy, this collected experience could be transformed into some kind of radiant light of compassion. And if it feels comfortable, placing hands together in front of the chest, symbolic gesture of offering and dedicating this light of our practice, that all beings everywhere could feel safe and held. That all beings everywhere could feel free from delusion and craving, could know love and belonging. That all beings everywhere, all beings of all time, could be free. What a treat to be with you all. We have a couple announcements here. I'll do mine very quickly. I'm teaching on Sunday, January 4th at Spirit Rock, half day, with my awesome pals, Alyssa Eppel and Nicole Chase. It's rest and rejuvenation. There'll be some kind of yoga nidra, a little bit of science, and a little bit of emotion awareness. I think there's a couple spots left at Esalen, the end of January, with Alejandro Chaul and myself teaching Tibetan breathwork. And we have a very cool workshop coming up in the end of January, and we happen to have the teacher here. So she's going to let us know a little bit about the practice. Be great.
Hi, I'm Erica, and nice to be here. I'm kind of new to the Sangha, but really loving it. And tonight was such a great segue to this. I can't believe it. On January 24th here, it's Saturday from 10 to 12, I'm teaching a workshop on Tonglen, which was not just alluded to, kind of like permeated what we were doing here tonight. This practice that actually some people find intimidating at first because of the openness to suffering, but it's this, opportunity to really open your heart to suffering and in yourself and others, and the boundary blurs after a while, and seeing this as, taking that willingness to be there and the bravery of that act as fuel for transforming that suffering into ease. Yeah. And for me, it's been the most profound practice of my life. It's also a great practice to have handy when you mentioned this, when there's someone you want to help, when you don't know what to do, when you feel like there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Because it reinforces your willingness to help. So anyway, I hope you'll join me.
And she won't say it, but Erica's an incredible teacher with so many decades of experience, so I really encourage you to not miss out. So, yes.
Hi, friends. I'm Mace, one of the volunteers here, one of many. There's lots of volunteer opportunities, so that's one. And I'll give you quick announcements. I believe we are not having class next Wednesday and the Wednesday after.
True.
Okay,
No
so-
Christmas Eve, no New Year's Eve.
Yep, but if you really want, on New Year's Eve, there's a really fun annual sober New Year's Eve party that's here. So that'll be on the website and the calendar. What is happening this week, though, is we have our Spanish Sangha on Thursday. So same time as this, but and again, I just want to be clear, that's for folks who are Spanish speakers. It's not for folks who want to learn Spanish while listening to the Dharma. So we just want to be really respectful of that space. And then Sunday, if you want to celebrate solstice by having a pure half-day retreat, it's 7:30 to 11:30, and it alternates sit, walk, sit, walk, sit, walk. So it's a beautiful way to kind of like wrap up the longest day. And then I also
Shortest day.
Shortest, you know. In Australia, it's the longest day. So we're celebrating the summer solstice. Anyways, just want to remind folks that we are a donation-based center. We pay our rent with the dana that you give us. We help our teachers function in this crazy expensive city. And I'm often pressuring you to consider a cup of coffee and kind of being like intense. So someone recommended possibly that we say that we're so grateful to everybody who gives regularly, to everybody who gives on Wednesday nights, to everybody who feels it's part of their practice to keep our teachers going. So thank you for everything that you've given. And if you can continue giving, that would be delightful. And we're also looking if anybody feels like they just want to kind of like get extra generous for year-end donations, like all the nonprofits in the world are doing right now. So multiple ways to collect people's finances, and thank you again for your donations and your presence and your participation in this song.
Thank you, Mace. See you next year. Whoa.